strength of a nation's currency is based on the strength of that nation's economy. And the American economy is by far the strongest in the world. Accordingly, I have directed the Secretary of the Treasury to take the action necessary to defend the dollar against the speculators.
The total amount went from $4.1 trillion in the last week of February 2020 to $7.5 trillion in the first week of February 2021. Not all of these are government bonds, but this number gives us an idea of how much the Fed has been acting during this crisis. Since the dollar is fiat money, there are no limits to issue debt and also no limits for the Fed to act and buy the bonds, supplying the government with more money. And more dollars available can also affect its value. If the United States had a currency backed by something, the Fed would not be able to expand the money supply to such an excessive amount. For example, if the Fed tried to do that while on the gold standard, it would cause the dollar value to fall due to oversupply, compared to its gold parity, and compromise the basis of the system. For the pessimists, this is putting us on a trajectory of crisis, and the collapse is inevitable. So again, in a nutshell, this is how the cycle of collapse would work. Everything starts with the currency backed by a physical asset. In the dollar case, until 1973, it was gold. The precious mineral gave value to currency and created a level of confidence that led to the expansion of commerce and credit. But with the currency attached to gold, there is a limit on how much credit is possible to generate. Plus, the system is affected by the amount of gold mined in the world and very exposed to speculation, as the country needs to always keep currency value in parity with the gold reserves. This limitation led to the idea that gold backing the dollar was not beneficial. The country then leaves the system. The fiat model comes in through a decree. Remember what fiat means. What follows is euphoria. The system is flooded with liquidity. Stimulus packages, increasing spending in many areas, increase in trade. This leads to abuse. Government starts spending more than it should and monetizes even more of its debts to fund its obligations. Slowly, the economic growth starts to decline and confidence starts to fade. Inflation begins rising. All confidence is lost. Hyperinflation follows and the economy collapses. A new government creates a new system with a new currency backed by a physical asset. The cycle begins anew. Critics believe we are at a stage where the government is starting to lose its confidence. Inflation inevitably will start to rise and be followed by hyperinflation and collapse. But is there any truth behind this pessimist view? Well, there isn't a consensus, but it's fair to say that the majority of economists would disagree with the forecast. One of the most critical of these views is Nobel Prize laureate and New York Times columnist Paul Krugman. As proof that pessimism is unfounded, he points to the aftermath of the 2008 financial crisis. From the start of the economic crisis until 2014, the Fed's balance sheet also grew exponentially, more than $4 trillion. And still, inflation stayed low. Krugman believes that the risks aren't greater now. He believes that for the most part, the funds that the Fed injected into the economy simply piled up either in the bank reserves or in cash held by individuals and are not harmful. The Fed's latest bond buying spree is an evolution of what began finding acceptance